I say to Mark Carney, this is your one job right now. This is why you got elected. It's time to talk about today's conversation in front of the press between the Prime Minister and President Donald Trump. I'm Steve Sanford. You're watching Dominion Report. So, Mark Carney has been Prime Minister for about 5 minutes, and already he's jumping into the deep end on managing Canada's fractured relationship with the United States and with the Trump administration. Carney and Trump met today at the White House, including a full press briefing in the East Room. Both leaders spoke, although Trump spoke much more than Carney, and the press was allowed to ask several questions. So what did we learn? I've got 5 key takeaways, and I'm going to let you know right now that the 5th one is actually the most important. Okay, so the first one. Carney seemed pretty well prepared and made some smart statements. Now, why do I say this? Well, in part because he allowed Trump to ramble, which Trump likes to do, with minimal intrusion. And because Trump loves the sound of his own voice, and people like that, like people who allow them to keep talking. And so that was actually fairly smart. Also, when Carney did step in to speak, it was to make one of his fundamental points, and he did so in a way that only softly challenged Trump and didn't aggravate Trump. He had some key points to make, but he certainly didn't want to get Zelensky'd. So let me give you an example. Trump was responding to a media question about Canada becoming the 51st state, and he rambled on as he usually does. Carney waited an appropriate amount of time, and then he spoke. I'm going to read an exact quote. Now, it might have a bit of my own editorial sprinkled in, but this is a quote. As you know from real estate, this is Carney speaking to Trump. As you know from real estate, there's some places that are never for sale. We're sitting in one right now. That's the White House. You know Buckingham Palace, where you have visited as well. That's smart to bring up a reference to the royals. Carney continued, having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign the last several months, it's not for sale. It won't be for sale ever, but the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a large change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us pulling our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it. Whew, okay. If that sounded like a run-on sentence, that's because it was, and that's by design. That was Carney pushing back. He was getting his point in that Canada will never be for sale, and then pivoting the conversation, and he just kept talking so that he wouldn't get interrupted. And he pivoted to something that he knows is also important to Trump and that he could use to compliment him. Now, during all of that, Trump said, that's true, at least 4 times, and including when he was being praised for his impact on NATO and military security. Now, you might just be asking, Steve, does this really demonstrate that Carney was well prepped? Or is it just Trump being easily manipulated? It's a good question, but my answer to that is both. Here's the second takeaway. Trump's approach to the issue of the 51st state has changed. He still says Canada should be the 51st state, but it's evolved. His phrasing is such that it's not a demand. It's more of a suggestion. By that he means, he suggests that Canada should if Canada wants to. Now, in some kind of bizarre world where that question ended up on a national referendum in Canada, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer would be. On to this third takeaway, and I really think this is related to the previous one. Trump really hated Justin Trudeau. He said it. He said it directly to Carney. He said he didn't like his Carney's predecessor, you could tell in his body language, Trump was really, I don't know, he was quite demeaning. He referred to him as governor. He even said that he referred to him as governor. Like he was still mocking Trudeau, even though he's not even in the picture anymore. We know Trump can be quite petty, and so perhaps a good chunk of his reasoning behind threats of annexation and verbal attacks on Canada over the last several months, perhaps or apparently they were at least partially because of his feelings about Trudeau. I'm sure psychologists could digest and dig into that a lot further than I could. He also made a point to say that he especially didn't like someone who worked with Trudeau, but he wouldn't say who it was. It was Chrystia Freeland. We know it was Chrystia Freeland. Freeland was Trudeau's deputy prime minister and Trudeau's finance minister, and she was also involved in the renegotiation of NAFTA into the USMCA during Trump's first term. Trump has spoken out about Freeland in the past and, very much doesn't like her. I'll just take a moment here to remind Canadians that Freeland ran against Carney for leadership of the Liberal Party. And if she had won, she would have been prime minister starting in about mid-March until at least an election was held, which could have been as late as October of this year. Okay, the fourth takeaway. This one will not be shocking. Trump continues to lie, like a lot. I'm not going to fact check every pants on fire statement he made because that would be exhausting. But I've picked two that are important to a certain point, I think. So here's one. We don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel. They actually have started building. They've encouraged building of steel manufacturing plants. Most of them won't be ready until 26 or 27. But we don't want steel from Canada. I don't know about that one. Let's get back to that in a second here. Here's the other one that I picked out. It's sort of related. We don't want Canadian steel and we don't want Canadian aluminum. Okay, I got two facts for you guys. The first, in 2024, the US purchased, by the way, they purchased it, that's their choice. They purchased 23% of their entire steel supply from Canada. So if you remove 23% of any commodity, those prices will skyrocket. Here's another fact. In 2024 also, the US purchased 60% of its aluminum from Canada. Just saying. Here's the thing. Trump comes from the real estate world, and it's common in real estate to attempt to devalue the thing that you actually really want. Good real estate developers are usually much less transparent at doing that. Okay, and we've made it to the fifth takeaway, and like I said, this is the most important one. This was just the first of many meetings to come, and of a whole process. In a video on this channel last week, we discussed the expectations regarding this meeting, and just as we thought, no public immediate groundbreaking changes have come out of it. We've also discussed on this channel that as the United States proceeds closer to a fascist oligarchy, the geopolitical shift that goes along with that is already underway. My take is that Carney's short-term task is to minimize the tariffs and the associated financial stress on Canada to buy enough time to build new trading infrastructure and pipelines, new security partnerships, and to develop a robust Canadian economy that is independent of the United States. This first meeting seemed to go well. No major blunders, about what was expected. Both leaders were able to say what they wanted to say. Things were kept cordial mostly, and even at times jovial. As Canadians, we now have to be patient to find out if Carney can actually get any results out of this process. We will keep following this story. In the meantime, stay calm, stay strong, and elbows up.